Is Cardano a zombie chain? Let's bite into that. Hello, friends. Welcome to Block Bytes. Every project in the crypto Twitterverse has its own devoted fan following that participates in frequent verbal back and forth with each other. I recently came across a set of tweets aimed towards Cardano, in which the layer 1 blockchain was called a zombie chain. In this video, I will try to uncover this claim and see if it holds water. Zombie chain is not a new term and is generally used for blockchains that are either dead or stagnant in terms of transactions and on-chain activity. Recently, I saw these two tweets calling Cardano a zombie chain. According to these tweets, Cardano is a zombie chain mainly because of three reasons. First, Cardano has low transaction count. Second, Cardano does one transaction per second. And third, Cardano cannot generate any activity. Now, activity could mean a lot of different things, but mostly it means user activity in terms of how much the blockchain has been used, and developer activity also. Developer activity is a good metric to track for any blockchain because it gives a good picture of what all activity in terms of new projects and new applications been built up on the blockchain is concerned. Let's start with the transaction count and transaction per second. According to Coinmetrics, the same reporting tool quoted in the tweets, Cardano's transaction count is the least amongst some prominent layer 1 chains. On October 22nd, Cardano clocked around 94,000 transactions compared to 950,000 on Ethereum, 5.5 million on Algorand, and 6 million on Tron. However, if we look at Sea Explorer, which is another Cardano blockchain explorer, we get a different number. The last 24 hours or 1 day transaction count is shown as 347,931, which is very different from 94,000 shown on Coinmetrics. Although this is not for October 22nd, but if you were to calculate the October 22nd transaction count, it would not be very different from this value. The TPS, or transaction per second, also comes out to be 4.03 as compared to 1.08 reported by Coinmetrics. But why are these two values so different? I searched for an explanation and found one on the Sea Explorer site itself. An article titled, "What a Single Cardano Transaction Do," clearly says that a single Cardano transaction is equivalent to hundreds of transactions on other blockchains. The article goes on to give an example to explain the point. Here is one transaction in which 217 addresses were simultaneously given ADA tokens. ADA is the native token on Cardano. This was all done in parallel, unlike Ethereum, where it would have counted as 217 distinct transactions. Another interesting thing about this transaction is its cost. The transaction costed only 3 cents, or rather 30 cents. Whereas if this was done on Ethereum, it would have costed 217 times, which would be equal to $89, depending on what the the transaction fee or is at that moment. Now you could do this using a smart contract on Ethereum, but that might cost even more given that smart contracts are more expensive than simple token transfers. So shall we start using the outputs for transaction counts? Not exactly. You see, every UTXO transaction has two parts to it. Let's take another example to understand this. In this transaction, user 1 on the left-hand side transferred 2.37 ADA to user 2 on the right side, and user 1 got the change of 16.6 ADA back into its wallet. Now, this transaction shows up as two outputs, but it should not be, as it's only one true transaction. So what now? Well, it appears that if one has to get as close as possible to the real transaction count on Cardano, not only are they supposed to look at the outputs, but they must also eliminate the transactions that correspond to change from every interaction. I don't think there is any blockchain explorer that actually does this, not even C Explorer, as we've seen. But then I found eutxo.org. This beautiful visual representation of what goes on into every block is amazing to look at. It clearly shows that transaction in Cardano encapsulate many different little transactions in it. The tool is developed by Peter Orovec, and when I wrote to him about the conundrum regarding outputs, he agreed to the hypothesis and said that he intends to do exactly that in his next release. So perhaps we will finally get to see a blockchain explorer reporting the proper TPS for Cardano. So where do we stand on transaction count? It is clear to me that transaction count shown by Coinmetrics and many other reporting tools do not show the real transaction count for Cardano. This is because a transaction has completely different meaning in Cardano. But this raises another important question for me. What about other blockchains? Is it possible that the transaction count reported for other blockchains are also incorrect? I'm not sure. But one thing is certain, transaction count and transaction per second is not a reliable metric to be used when comparing different blockchains. It will be like comparing apples with oranges. Let's move on to the next point, which is the activity. Activity is directly correlated to the number of dApps on the chain. According to the latest Cardano report, it has only 104 active dApps on its chain. It, however, has 11 times more dApps under development. Here is how this looks compared to other blockchains. Algorand, Cardano, and Polkadot only has 1, 2, and 3% of all dApps amongst these chains. What about daily active users? Well, if the number of dApps are less, you can assume that the number of daily active users would also be less. Let's look at some data. I got this data from a reporting site called GokuStats. You can see that Avalanche, Cardano, and Near have similar DAUs or daily active users, which is less than 100,000. Polkadot has even smaller DAU. All right. So user activity is not great on Cardano, but there are other chains with even worse user activity. What about developer activity? Developer activity is a good indicator of the amount of work happening behind the scenes on any given chain. According to this data from Sentiment, Cardano, Ethereum, Polkadot, Algorand, Avalanche, and Cosmos have a much higher level of developer activity compared to Near and Solana. This seems correct, as we saw that Cardano has over 1,100 dApps under development. It will be interesting to see how Cardano scales up to these dApps when these dApps start getting deployed on-chain. But that's a topic for a different video. So here are my final thoughts. Calculating transaction counts and TPS is complex. Transactions mean different things on different chains. And so comparing chains based on transaction count and TPS is not reliable and is prone to error. What matters is whether a blockchain can scale up to increase transaction volume. User activity is low on Cardano, but it is much lower for other chains like Polkadot, Near, and Avalanche. Developer activity, on the other hand, is very high, especially if you factor in the fact that Cardano uses Haskell as its primary programming language, which is not even in the top 25 most widely used languages. I feel the reason for this is the push from the foundation and the community to make it easy to onboard new developers. Marlowe is one such initiative by Cardano, which allows JavaScript and even Blockly programmers to create dApps. This is amazing. Cardano is also working on creating an EVM-compatible sidechain, which will allow Solidity programs to run on Cardano. No points in guessing what this will lead to. Yes, you're right, more developer activity and more dApps in the future. So do I think Cardano is a zombie chain? Based on whatever I have found researching, I do not. I hope you find this video interesting. Relevant links are in the description. Consider liking and sharing this video, and I will see you later with another fresh bite. Thank you.